Welcome to The Haunted Beard, everybody. My name is Jake. Thank you for joining me. Today, I'm going to give you my review for one of my most anticipated movies of the year. Finally got a chance to see it, and that is Maxine. And of course, this stars Mia Goth and is directed by Ti West. And this is the third and final chapter of the X trilogy. And Maxine takes place in 1985, and it sees Maxine Minx get her big break as she is cast in a major Hollywood film. But of course, there is a mysterious killer going around Los Angeles killing people while also threatening to reveal Maxine's past. There is so much about Maxine that I enjoyed. The visual presentation, I think, is fantastic. This movie is just totally immersed into 1980s Hollywood and Los Angeles, and everything about it works. Just all the vibes, all the atmosphere that the movie sends off, I was eaten up and thoroughly enjoying. There is a lot of kind of homage within Maxine, definitely reminiscent of some 80s, kind of crime mystery thriller movies, particularly some of the films of Brian De Palma in that era. If you're familiar with De Palma's film Body Double, that would be one that I would almost guarantee Ti West got some inspiration from. And also there's some Alfred Hitchcock stuff in here as well, as we actually get a scene on the studio backlot of the Bates Motel. And so there is kind of some cool homage and stuff like that to films of the past that heavily influence Maxine. And so just as a movie lover in general, I found a lot here to really appreciate and admire. And Ti West injects this thing with some great visual flares. He's got such an incredible creative eye. And not only does it capture this time period extremely well, but it's capturing kind of the dark, seedy underbelly of society, and all that really comes through very well. And this movie is a visual feast for the eyes. I found so much about it so visually appealing and entertaining, whether it be him doing, kind of the use of split screen with just some of the colors and the lighting, some strobe effects, the smoke, the fog. He just captures it all so well in just an incredible visual way that, man, I was eating this thing up. I thought it was absolutely beautiful looking. And I like, too, how he kind of fuses a couple different sort of subgenres together with sort of that murder mystery, and then you get part slasher film, and then you get part almost kind of biopic in a way, as this is, the Maxine Minx story, and it's all set within this backdrop of, the behind the scenes of Hollywood kind of thing. And so you get that sort of movie within a movie type vibe, which is always pretty cool as well. Of course, Mia Goth's performance here is really good. I mean, would you expect anything else at this point? But in addition to her, some of the standouts for me are Kevin Bacon and Giancarlo Esposito. Just interesting characters and just very memorable. Bacon plays this sleazy private investigator who is basically harassing Maxine and trying to track her down. But I really like what Bacon did with the character, very memorable. And I also thought Elizabeth Debicki, who plays the director for the film that Maxine gets cast in, is really great as well. She's like this perfectionist director and this no-nonsense, very straight-laced, sort of my way or the highway type person. But her scenes with Maxine as well are really good. There's the scene where they kind of take the tour through the back lot, and again, they're just kind of having this conversation, but good character work here, good writing and dialogue and stuff like that from the main characters that I really enjoyed. This movie is so good, but then you get to about the last 20 to 30 minutes or so. The last act really, unfortunately, kind of plummets in terms of quality. And I won't get into spoilers or anything, but it felt like the climax of this movie belonged in a different movie. It just didn't really fit for me. Some of it felt just off and kind of odd, a little silly, a little corny. There's some stuff that happens with the two detectives played by Bobby Cannavale and Michelle Monaghan, which I wasn't a huge fan of their characters, mainly just because They don't really do a whole lot. You don't really get much to them. So it seemed kind of weird to cast like some bigger name people in those roles because there's not really much to them. But then what happens with them in the finale, especially with Michelle Monaghan, I found really corny and goofy. And just the way that this movie kind of takes the shift when you get the ultimate reveal of finding out who the killer is, and then sort of the motivations behind it all and how that entire scene and sequence was executed, it just didn't really work for me. It just felt so off and out of place, and I found it very unsatisfying. And then you get the last few minutes or so, and based on something that Maxine does, I did not understand why this happened. I'm trying to be very vague, of course, but I just had some issues with it, and I had some questions as things didn't make sense based on characters' actions and decisions, and the outcome of those actions and decisions seemed very unbelievable and didn't make much sense to me. Unfortunately, when a movie ends on a down note, it leaves you with that bad, disappointed taste in your mouth. It's much easier to kind of have a bad beginning and then improve from there. But when you start so good and then you just kind of plummet at the end, man, it's such a bummer. I was thoroughly enjoying and really loving this thing up until you get to the third act. And man, if it could have continued that same trajectory of the first 2/3, this would be like practically at the top of my list of the year so far. But as it sits now, it's definitely dropped a few spots behind. The first 2/3, I'd be like an 8.5 out of 10, but then that last third really kills it. So overall, I'm gonna be like a 6.5 still, probably out of 10, because man, I really, really liked the first 2/3 of it so much. But yeah, those are my thoughts. I'm gonna go 6.5 out of 10 for Maxine. So yeah, like I said, those are my thoughts. Hit me up down below. Be very curious to hearing your thoughts on this one, especially what your opinion was on the ending. Did you love it? Did you hate it? Were you somewhere in the middle? Let me know down below. Would love to hear from you. So that's all I got for you though, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. Greatly appreciate it. If you got anything out of this video, you know what to do. Do not click that subscribe button unless you want to be haunted by the beard.